It started as a simple weekend getaway. Just me, my brother, and two of our friends heading to the Cascades for a quiet camping trip. I still wish we hadn't gone. We hiked 5 miles off trail, far from any marked campsite, to a spot by a small lake. It was beautiful, isolated, with the faint hum of water and wind through the trees. The first day was peaceful. We fished, told stories, and settled in before sundown. Around midnight, I woke up to a sound that froze my blood, a woman screaming. It wasn't faint, it was right outside our camp, echoing through the trees. My brother whispered, "That's a cougar. They scream like that." But it didn't sound like an animal, it sounded human. We stayed inside the tent, gripping our flashlights, waiting for it to stop. But the screams came again, closer, then silence. A minute later, soft crying, like someone trying to stifle sobs. I whispered, "Should we help?" No one moved, we just listened. The crying turned into low mumbling, then laughter. I've never heard laughter like that, wet, broken, almost joking. At dawn, we found footprints near our tents, bare feet, no shoes, just long, narrow footprints leading out toward the trees and disappearing at the lake's edge. We packed and left that morning. On our way down the trail, we ran into a ranger. He told us we weren't the first to hear her. 2 years earlier, a woman had vanished near that lake. Her claim she wandered off after an argument. They never found her body, only her shoes and torn jacket by the water. Now every time I hear the wind in the trees, I swear it sounds like someone laughing. We weren't supposed to camp off-grid that far north, but curiosity and youth make bad partners. On the second day of our hike through Olympic National Park, my friend Josh spotted a small clearing off the main trail, perfectly secluded, ideal for setting up camp. We were setting up our tents when I noticed something odd. Another tent, about 50 feet away. It was weathered, faded orange, and looked abandoned. Out of respect, we assumed it belonged to someone who left in a hurry. But when we unzipped it, the air inside was still warm. A half-empty thermos of coffee, a sleeping bag flattened as if someone had just left it. And in the dirt outside, fresh footprints circling both of our campsites. That night, Josh woke me up. He whispered, "Do you hear whistling?" It was faint, high-pitched, distant, like someone imitating a bird. But it wasn't rhythmic, it was mimicking us. Every time we whispered, it whistled. At 3 a.m., I saw a dim light moving between the trees, like a lantern swinging. Josh wanted to call out, but I grabbed his arm. Silence stopped by dawn. The tent we'd found was gone, just a patch of flattened grass where it used to be. We hiked out in silence. Later, a ranger told us about local stories of the whistlers, forest hermits who lure campers deeper into the woods by mimicking their voices or sounds. I don't believe in legends, but sometimes, when the wind hits right, I swear I can still hear that tune. It was supposed to be a family trip. Me, my dad, and his old army buddy, Mark. We set up camp deep in the Deschutes National Forest. I remember the first night vividly, stars everywhere, a clean breeze, the steady crackle of our campfire. But the fire never went out. We poured water on it. We smothered it with dirt. It would dim, then reignite. Dad joked that the wood must have been soaked in gas, but we hadn't brought anything flammable. By the second night, the smoke began to smell sweet, almost like burning flowers. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to see Mark sitting by the fire, staring into it. His face was blank, eyes wide. "She's in there," he said. "Don't you see her?" I thought he was dreaming, but then I looked closer. The flames moved. A shape, a figure, like someone reaching out. I remember screaming and yanking him away. The next morning, Mark was gone. His shoes, his pack, everything left behind. Rangers and police searched for days, but they never found him. They only found blackened footprints around the ashes, the weirdest part. A week later, the fire pit was inspected by forest authorities. Even after rain, it was still hot. They reported it burned underground for 9 days. The first night alone in the woods felt thrilling, until it didn't. I had chosen a remote patch of forest, far from anyone, for the peace and silence. The air was crisp, my campfire warm, the night stars sharp enough to cut the dark. But at 1:17 a.m., I woke up to something breathing right next to my tent. Slow, deep, wet breaths. It wasn't an animal. The breathing paused whenever I moved. I held my breath, counting the seconds, waiting, then scratching. A finger or claw dragging slowly across the tent fabric. I whispered, "Hello." Silence. Then a whisper came back, "Hello." My heart dropped. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it on, but didn't dare unzip the tent. The breathing stopped. Then I heard footsteps, heavy and slow, walking away. When dawn came, I stepped outside. No footprints. No signs of wildlife, but the ground directly outside the tent was wet, like someone had been kneeling there all night. I packed and left before the sun fully rose. As I reached my car, I turned back one last time. The tent door was open. Even though I had zipped it shut, I was part of a volunteer trail crew in northern Idaho. One of our jobs was clearing out old overgrowth from forgotten hiking paths. On the third day, I stumbled upon something strange, a small cabin, almost swallowed by pine and moss. It wasn't on any map. The windows were boarded up. The door was locked from the outside. My partner radioed it in, but the signal was weak. We decided to wait for morning to report it officially. That night, we camped nearby. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of footsteps circling the tent. I looked out and saw a dim light glowing from the direction of the cabin, flickering like candlelight. The next morning, the cabin door was open. Inside, everything was untouched: bed, table, dishes. But the walls were covered in hundreds of small carvings, names, dates, and the words "Let Emmy Out." Later, when the ranger team returned, the cabin was gone, just dirt and moss where it had been. When I told my supervisor, he went pale. He said that same cabin was reported and burned down 20 years earlier after a man was found inside, starved to death, still clutching a matchbook. I used to volunteer with a hiking group that cleaned and maintained trails in Colorado's Roosevelt National Forest. Every summer, we'd get reports of an old man seen wandering alone, never asking for help, always walking the same trail. One day, our group actually saw him. He looked wrong. His clothes were decades out of date: old canvas jacket, leather boots, a rucksack that looked World War II era. His face was pale, but calm. That evening, back at our camp, one of our members, Hannah, pulled out an old trail registry book. She pointed at a name from 1984, Daniel M. She said that's the same man, exact description, reported missing that year. We laughed it off, assuming it was some lookalike. But that night, I woke up to footsteps circling our tent. They were slow, deliberate, crunching in the pine needles. Hannah whispered, "He's outside." The next morning, her hiking pole, which she'd left beside her sleeping bag, was gone. Instead, we found a trail marker carved into a nearby tree, a triangle with 3 lines through it. That same symbol was in the 1984 Ranger report describing Daniel's disappearance. Every year since, hikers still report seeing the old man with the green pack, walking the same trail, never aging, never speaking, always heading north. I was solo camping near the Salmon River in Idaho, about 5 miles from the nearest road. The first night was peaceful, flowing water, crickets, perfect quiet. But on the second night, I heard laughter. At first, it was faint. I thought it was an echo, maybe someone camping across the river. But then it repeated, mimicking me. When I laughed nervously to break the silence, the voice laughed too. The same pitch, the same timing. It wasn't echoing, it was copying. I shouted, "Who's there?" And everything went silent for about 10 seconds. Then, from the trees, the same voice shouted back, "Who's there?" My blood ran cold. I packed my gear immediately and started hiking toward my car. Even though it was pitch dark, I heard branches breaking behind me, footsteps, and that same laughter, close now, like it was following. When I finally reached my car, there were muddy footprints near the driver's door. Bare, human footprints. I sped off without looking back. The ranger I reported it to told me about a local case from the 1980s, a hiker who went missing after claiming someone in the forest copied his every move. They never found him, only his campfire, still burning. There were 4 of us, me, my girlfriend Lena, and our friends Tom and Riley. We'd planned a weekend hike using a GPS app that showed old, forgotten trails. One route led to what looked like an empty campground deep in the Smokies. After 2 hours, we found it: rusted fire pits, torn tarps, rotting logs. But the weirdest part, there were tents still standing. Not new, not old, like someone had left them only days ago. Inside one of them, there were fresh clothes, children's clothes. We didn't see anyone around, but the air felt wrong, heavy and silent. As we were exploring, Lena gasped and pointed at my phone. The GPS app had glitched. Our position dot was moving, heading deeper into the forest. Even though none of us were walking, we decided to leave immediately. As we were packing up, a voice shouted from the trees, "Wait!" We froze. It was a man's voice, hoarse and desperate. We ran behind us. I could hear him shouting again, "Please, don't leave me here." When we reached the trailhead, I checked my phone again. The GPS showed the same campsite, but this time, there was a new dot next to it, labeled simply, "You." I was working as a seasonal ranger in the Tonto National Forest when we got a distress call from a group of campers. They claimed voices were coming from their fire, whispering names. When we arrived, the campsite was empty, the fire still burning. My partner noticed something strange. Each log in the fire had carvings, names, dozens of them, burned into the bark. We radioed for backup and followed the footprints leading away from the site. About half a mile in, we found one of the campers, shaking, barefoot, whispering. They called me. He said the voices came from the flames, saying his full name, over and over. The others were found the next day, alive, but disoriented. None of them remembered leaving the fire. Their voices were hoarse, like they'd been shouting all night. When the logs were examined later, forensic teams found the carvings were done long ago, at least 20 years before. To this day, that area is closed off. We call it Echo Camp. In 1997, a family of four set out to camp near Mount Rainier. They never returned. What I'm about to share isn't public record. It's from my uncle, who was part of the original search team. 3 days into the search, they found the campsite perfectly intact. Tent zipped, food packed, sleeping bags neatly arranged. But the fire was still burning, and the coffee pot was halfway full. It looked like they had just stepped away a few minutes earlier. There were no signs of struggle. No animal tracks, no human ones either. Just a strange circular patch of burned ground about 20 feet from the tent, as if something had scorched the earth clean. The weirdest part, when the search team left, they marked the site with orange tape. But the next morning, when they returned, the tent was gone. Everything, only the burned circle remained. The case remains open to this day. The ranger's report says no evidence of foul play. My uncle says that's a lie, because 3 years later, another team camping nearby reported hearing children's laughter at night and a man's voice whispering, "Come back inside the tent."